We all keep ledgers in our lives, right? For our money, for our work. But what if we thought about our entire life that way? Like a giant ledger. What are the real assets? The real liabilities? And at the end of it all, when everything's tallied up, what truly has value?
It's a really powerful thought experiment. Just imagine for a second opening up the paper and seeing your name there, on those final pages, writing your own obituary. Some people call it a reverse obituary. It forces you to look at your life from the finish line, and it asks this incredibly simple but profound question. What do you hope people will say about you when you're gone?
And this is where it gets really interesting. The writer Morgan Housel, he just nails it. He says we get so mixed up confusing the symbols of success with the real substance of it. What we're all really chasing deep down, it isn't the stuff. It's that feeling, right? The feeling of being valued, respected, and admired by the people who matter to us. But man, we often go about it in all the wrong ways.
When you really think about that obituary, the stuff on the left, the fancy car, the big title, it all starts to feel a little hollow, doesn't it? The real weight, the things that actually build a legacy, that's everything on the right. And you can't buy any of it. These are qualities you have to build, day by day. Kindness, wisdom, love, these are the entries that truly balance the ledger of a life.
So, okay, if it's not about just getting more stuff, then how do we create this lasting value? How do we fill our own personal ledger with things that have real, enduring worth? Well, turns out it often requires a completely different kind of currency. And to really get our heads around this idea of a different currency, we got to look at an example where incredible value was created, not by gaining something, but by giving everything away. It's a story that, on the surface, looks like a total loss. But for billions of people, it represents the single greatest asset ever recorded in the ledger of humanity. Okay, so we really have to understand the context here. Back then, Roman crucifixion, it wasn't just a way to die. It was a public spectacle. It was all about shame and humiliation. It was saved for the lowest of the low, rebels, enemies of the empire. It was slow, it was agonizing, and it was designed to be a terrifying warning. In the eyes of the entire world at that time, this was the very definition of absolute defeat. And on that Friday, the timeline was just stark. At 9 in the morning, the crucifixion starts. By noon, this strange darkness covers the land, and at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus breathes his last. Now, according to Christian belief, this was the moment the ledger of all human sin was paid in full, a debt settled through an absolutely unimaginable sacrifice. And this brings up a fascinating paradox about how we think of value. We're taught that value comes from playing it safe, right? Accumulating assets, minimizing risk. But what if the exact opposite is true? The director Elaine May once said, "The only safe thing is to take a chance." And if you think about it, from a purely worldly point of view, the crucifixion was the biggest risk imaginable. It was a total surrender. And yet, in that ultimate risk, believers see the creation of something of infinite spiritual value. So this whole idea of a ledger, a record of value, of debts and assets, it's as old as civilization itself. But right now, today, we are completely reinventing it. We're making this huge leap from personal and spiritual ledgers to creating brand new digital ones on the absolute cutting edge of technology. And it's all in an effort to redefine how we track and transfer value in the modern world. It's a mouthful, but it's called real-world asset tokenization, or RWA for short. Look, in plain English, it's pretty simple. It's about taking something real and tangible, like a building or a famous painting, and creating a secure digital token on a blockchain that represents ownership of that thing. You can kind of think of it like a digital title deed. It's a whole new kind of ledger for a whole new age.
And how it works is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, you pick a real-world asset. Step 2, you convert the legal ownership rights into digital tokens. And finally, Step 3, those tokens get issued on a blockchain, that shared, unchangeable digital ledger we were just talking about. It's an amazing way to see how we're bridging the gap between the physical and the digital worlds.
So why is this such a big deal? Well, it's a total game changer for the idea of ownership. Imagine owning just a tiny piece of a skyscraper or a single brushstroke of a famous painting. That's what we call fractional ownership. All of a sudden, these massive assets that used to be only for the super rich become accessible to way more people. And because it's all on this transparent digital ledger, you can trade these tiny pieces all over the world 24/7. It basically turns something as solid as a building into a liquid asset.
Okay, wow, so we've gone from our personal legacy to a spiritual ledger to blockchain technology. That's been quite a ride. But let's bring it all the way back home. We're building these unbelievably sophisticated systems to manage and organize our financial value. But what about the things we talked about at the very beginning? The things that truly matter?
So we have these new digital ledgers for our stocks, our real estate, our art collection. But what system are we using for the assets that will actually show up in our obituary? What about the assets you can't ever turn into a token?
It's our relationships. Simple as that. The people in our lives, they are our most valuable asset. They're the true source of that respect and admiration we all crave. They are the living, breathing legacy that we build every single day.
And maybe the closest thing we have to a real ledger for this incredible asset is already in our pocket. It's our contact list. Seriously, think about it. You can treat it just like a valuable portfolio. You can merge duplicates to clean it up. You can create lists to group people, family, friends, coworkers, and you can prioritize your favorites to make absolutely sure you're giving your time and energy to the people who matter most. Okay, so let's tie all of these threads together. We've been on a real journey here, from figuring out what a valuable life even looks like, to understanding how value can be created through sacrifice, to exploring these wild new technological ledgers, and finally, bringing it all back to curating the most important ledger of all, the people we know and love.
It really all boils down to 4 big ideas. First, a true legacy is built on character, not possessions. It's written in the hearts of other people. Second, the greatest value, it often requires taking the greatest risk. Third, technology is handing us these powerful new ledgers for our physical assets. And finally, number 4, our most important ledger, the one that holds all our relationships, that's the one that deserves our most careful attention. There's this ancient verse from the Psalms that brings us right back to where we started. It says, "Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom." And numbering our days, that's just another way of thinking about that reverse obituary, isn't it? It's about living with purpose, knowing our time here isn't unlimited, and focusing our energy on the things that give us wisdom, on what truly, truly has value.
So I'll just leave you with this one last thought. Sometime today, pull out your phone and just scroll through your contacts. If that list is the real ledger of your life, a record of the people you've invested in and the people who've invested in you, what story does it tell?